The planet has experienced climate change before, but it usually plays out over thousands or millions of years. Now global warming is measured in decades, even years. It means scores of species won't be able to keep up. Warming at this speed could send us into uncharted territory, like nothing we've experienced in the history of life on Earth. Global warming started with our insatiable appetite for energy. Every switch we flip, every plug, every button we push to turn something on inevitably leads back to a place like this. Nearly 90% of the world's energy starts as a fossil fuel. Coal, oil, natural gas. These three fuels combined are the single largest source of CO2 emissions pouring into the atmosphere. If the world warms by 2 degrees, some changes to the biosphere are no longer gradual. Greenland's glaciers are disappearing. So much ice has melted, polar bears struggle to survive. Insects migrate in strange new directions. As a temperate climate moves north in the US, pine beetles kill off the white bark forests, a grizzly bear's key source of food in the fall. New forests take root in Canada's melting tundra. The Pacific islands of Tuvalu are lost beneath the rising tides of global warming. This could be our world plus 2 degrees.
At 2 degrees of warming, the impacts in the marine ecosystem are going to be much more severe.
The oceans are the planet's largest carbon sink, nature's primary mechanism for absorbing CO2 out of the atmosphere. But lately, there are indications these systems are breaking down. Under normal conditions, tiny sea creatures like forams and coccolithophores absorb carbon out of the water and use it to build their shells and skeletons. But there is a tipping point when too much CO2 in the oceans turns the water increasingly acidic. Acidification dissolves the creature's shells and skeletons and prevents them from absorbing more CO2 out of the water to build new ones. Some of these tiny animals at the bottom of the food chain measure only 1 millimeter. But the fate of all sea creatures, of all shapes and sizes, larger and larger, hangs in the balance. Alter the ocean's chemistry, and nature's primary mechanism for controlling the climate begins to break down.
You lose a coral reef, you lose perhaps 500,000 species. You lose those little coccolithophores, these little algae, and you start to lose things that are very important to life on this planet. We're losing some of the most vital elements of the way the world works, and that's got us all concerned.
Scientists half a world away share those concerns. They're investigating global warming at the climate's opposite extreme. It took nature 150,000 years to make the Great Greenland Ice Sheet that's now melting into the sea faster than at any time in history. As it disappears, rising oceans will flood coastal cities around the world. Greenland's Jakobshavn Glacier is the fastest moving ice field on the planet. more than 40 meters per day, melting into the sea twice as fast as a decade ago. Rising temperatures are transforming one of the Earth's harshest climates, disrupting the way people have lived in Greenland for hundreds of years. For as long as anyone can remember, sled dogs have been a symbol of wealth here and a necessity for survival, especially for hunting across the winter sea ice. When the winter ice started thinning, dogs became an expense most islanders couldn't afford. In this town of 4,500 people, there are 4,000 dogs, with very little to do these days. Many are starving. Some are being put down. Marit Holm is one of Greenland's 5 veterinarians. As she patrols the town of Ilulissat, she sees the impact of climate change in every sled dog without a sled to pull.
So that's what I do. I drive around and look after the dogs. The dogs are hungry, so I have to be a little bit careful not to get bitten. And when the dogs are hungry, they are a little bit more dangerous to people and kids walking around. It doesn't seem to be sick. It's very skinny. So I have to try to find out who's the owner and talk to him.
These animals were once in peak physical condition. They served a vital purpose in their owners' lives.
That's a thing of the past, and we don't see any young people who takes some dogs and live as a fisherman and a hunter.
Dogs have been in Finn Sistel's family as long as he can remember. He finally gave up his team of 19 just in the last few years.
In the winter, even though it was an impossible thing to do about 20 years ago, most of the fishermen go out with a boat today instead of dog sleds.
When Finn was growing up, this was their winter hunting ground. Solid ice for more than half the year.
Everything happens so fast. It's so visible, you don't have to be a scientist to determine what's happening.
With each passing season, Finn watches as traditions locked in the ice melt away.
There's something interesting in the side because you can see small bubbles. And these bubbles are older than all living creatures in the world. And you can listen to it. Because the bubbles are so compressed. And when they get out, it's like popping. You can talk to the ice.
That's what an intrepid team of scientists does once a year. Fly into Greenland's interior to listen to the ice. Swiss Camp is a scientific research installation built directly into the glacier to track climate change. Dr. Conrad Steffens has erected 23 full-service weather stations that take a complete range of climate measurements every 15 seconds, updating global warming computer models all over the world.
The ice sheet is very old. It's over 150,000 years old. If we start to remove it, then we actually start a process that is unknown to civilization. We have never seen Greenland disappearing.
Watch it, watch it, watch it.
In 1992, 5.6 kilometers of glacier was slipping into the sea and disappearing. 10 years later, that number more than doubled to 15.5 kilometers annually. Steffens wouldn't understand how warmer weather affects the speed of glaciers until he came upon one of the strangest and most dangerous features of this forbidding landscape.